If someone ever asked me if there was a story that I would want all of my followers to listen to from beginning to the end, it would be this one. These are the type of stories that truly scare me so much. Just wait till the ending of this. So this guy says that when he was very, very young, he had a best friend named Raul. He said that it was a privilege to be Raul's best friend because unlike his home life, Raul's home life was really amazing. Raul had two parents who loved him so much and gave him attention. He even remembers how Raul didn't have to share his bedroom and had it all decorated with things that he loved. He lived in this really big house and had all the toys that just kids would dream of. He even had the newest and most modern video game setup, so of course when Raul asked him to stay the night, he was happy to. And just like he expected, he had the time of his life in that sleepover, and it wasn't just like the toys and having fun with Raul, but even Raul's parents treated him like he was a part of the family. He remembers eating sweets and they even ordered pizza, which was really rare in his own household. He remembers even little details like when they were gonna watch movies, they would let him choose the movie that the entire family was going to watch. He says that they would watch the movie and then they would go play video games, they would have snacks until they eventually would go to bed. However, not everything was perfect. There was just something about when nighttime came that was not good. He realized that something was not right the first night he spent the night in that house, and he was tossing and turning. He explains that what he started to hear was almost like if somebody was knocking on the bedroom window. He thought to himself that maybe it was a branch of a tree that was making that kind of sound, so he didn't even bother opening his eyes to look outside that window. However, a few moments later, he heard that tapping on the window again. He did pretend to be asleep while somebody was tapping on that window, but he admits that that really scared him, not knowing who was on the other side. He ended up falling asleep until it was morning time, and then he didn't tell anybody anything because he forgot, since he was dreading going back home in the morning. So a week passed and it was the weekend again, and Raul again asked him if he wanted to spend the night, and he was so excited that he said yes and completely forgot about the window incident. However, they had fun. They went to bed, he couldn't fall asleep, and somebody was tapping on that window again. However, this time, after knocking or tapping on that window and him pretending to be asleep, he heard something different after. What he heard was somebody attempting to open that window. And he says that they were being successful because he could hear that window opening. He literally stood up, looked at the window, and he saw when a hand pulled back and hit. He said that the hand was long with his fingers all weird, and that to him, it was like a demon hand or something. He woke up Raul, who also looked and saw that the window was open, and they ran to the parents' bedroom and woke them up. The parents were obviously very alarmed, went, and they didn't see anything. The window wasn't even open. The parents also explained to him that they had an alarm system. They walked him to the alarm system and even went as far as giving him the code because they wanted him to feel comfortable, and if anything was wrong or if he ever needed to come over and they weren't home, he could put in that alarm code and come inside. And of course, that did calm him down, and him and Raul went back to the bedroom and they went to bed. And of course, with time, he completely forgot about that incident and he continued to go over to Raul's house. However, he does admit that every time in the night he would hear something. If it wasn't a tap on the window, it was something completely different. Unfortunately, he says that the sounds coming from the yard or from the window weren't even the worst of it. There was one night he really needed to go to the restroom. As he's going to the restroom, he could see the front yard of the house through this big window, and he swears that he sees a really tall, bald man just staring into the house. He said the man didn't have like any hair in his face, like it was no eyebrows, just his eyes, his lips, like he was very pale. So when he saw him the first time, it was on a Thursday. The following day, he sees him again, but this time he is a little bit closer to the house. By the time Saturday came, he was right next to the window of that house. He did say that he thought to himself, like, why am I seeing this ghost? I cannot bring it up. If I continue to bring this up to the family, they're gonna stop inviting me over and they're not gonna let me hang out with Raul anymore. However, there was one last occasion where he saw this bald man. He woke up because he was really thirsty and he was gonna go to the kitchen and get a glass of water. He remembers that his grandmother told him about this like myth where if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're really thirsty, it's because someone has been observing you. Kate didn't need to hear that within this story. I'm a thirsty ass bitch at 3 in the morning. Anywho, he gets up, he starts walking towards the kitchen, and at this point he knew this house almost like if it was his own. So he was just gonna go and get a glass of water and go back to bed. However, when he walked out of Raul's room and about to head towards the kitchen, something that was in the living room walking into the kitchen was surprised to see him. And unfortunately, he recognized what that was. The figure that he had been seen outside was now inside of the house. The bald man just stayed very still, and he said that he just walked backwards, went into Raul's room, and closed that door. And obviously he didn't tell the family anything, but he knew that this was out of control and very much out of his hands. The things that he was seeing were just getting worse and worse. And unfortunately, he would refuse to spend the night at Raul's house after that. He said that in the beginning when Raul would invite him over and he would say no, that maybe he didn't give it that much importance, but eventually Raul would invite somebody else and he started having new friends, and him and Raul just weren't friends anymore. Time passes and he says that when they were 25 years old, he ended up bumping into Raul again. They were so happy to see each other that they ended up grabbing a coffee and just sat down and started talking. He tells Raul that all of his fond memories were at his house and that he was so grateful that they were friends even if it was for a short amount of time. And he also explained to Raul why he stopped coming over, because of that ghost that only he would see every night. That is when Raul told him something to calm him down, but it was the complete opposite. That definitely did not calm him down. Raul told him the following. Yeah, there was something there at that house. That they discovered it a year after he stopped coming over to Raul's house. It was definitely not a ghost, but it was terrifying. Raul said that even his parents were like, oh my gosh, the kid was right this entire time and we had no idea. A family member of Raul's father knew that house very well. This family member only lived several streets away from them. This family member had severe mental issues and was supposed to be watched and in his own house at all times because he was dangerous. However, he had found a way to escape that house every night without being caught. And every night that he would escape, he would head over to Raul's house. At first only standing outside the house and then eventually figuring out the alarm system's code and getting inside of that house. They even figured out that the way he got that code was when they had given it to him that one night that he was scared. They actually found him one night because the family was gonna go on vacation, but the dad forgot something at home. When the dad walked into the house, he found him inside and this family member attacked the dad. The family member ended up running out of that house, but eventually was caught by the police. He was taken, but not to jail because again, he had very severe mental health issues. And after all this, they found out that every night that he would escape his house, he had attacked a lot of people, ending their lives. Raul also told him that after that, he was never able to sleep comfortably in his room knowing that the guy was so close. He had opened his window, he had done all of these things until this family member did end up passing away 4 years after that incident. Even after his passing, they were to find people that he had ended and they never knew. So yeah, this is how he found out that he was never seeing a ghost. He was seeing that family member with severe mental issues and he survived. This is why this scares me so much, because I feel like you should be more scared of the living than the dead. The way that this could happen to anyone is what scares me so much. But anyway, what do you guys think?
Whatever you do, don't pull over at night. Last night I was driving home from a family reunion and it was pretty late. The drive back was about 2 hours long. Most of the drive was on roads with dense bushes and tall trees on either side. You know, the real creepy ones you see in a lot of movies. Yeah, I know. I should have known. But anyways, I had been driving for about 45 minutes and I started getting really tired. You know how it goes, the big yawns and then the droopy eyes. I knew I wasn't going to last, but I tried to push through, I swear, for as long as I could, which honestly was only for another 15 minutes. That's when I started swerving and I knew I had to pull over to at least take a power nap so I wouldn't be a danger to myself and to others while on the road. The road I was driving on wasn't necessarily completely empty. Like, I would see a car go by every 20 minutes or so I wasn't completely alone. I don't know if that made me feel better or worse about pulling over, but all I knew was that I needed to. So that's what I did. I pulled over to the side of the road, onto the grass, next to what appeared to be an endless sight of tall trees. Honestly, it was so relaxing, seeing the moonlight seep through the cracks. I locked my car, reclined my seat, and before I dozed off, I made a mental note of the time. 11:57. Then off to sleep I went. Sometime later, I was awoken by, I want to say, a moaning sound of some sort. I don't really know, and I don't know where it was coming from, but I opened my eyes right away and I locked my eyes on the radio clock, which read 12:35 a.m. As soon as my eyes adjusted, the sound stopped. Something still felt off though, but I was extremely tired and my car was locked and I was safe from animals. I should have trusted my gut looking back. I should have just left then and there, but I was tired. I fell back asleep. Then later on, I was awoken by the same sound, except this time I knew exactly where it was coming from. It was louder than before, and it was coming from the back of my car right under the trunk. I shot up right away and I looked at the time, adjusting my eyes. It was 1:56 a.m. It was so late, I thought. I tried to look at the rearview window, but it was foggy. All my windows were foggy. My heart was pounding at this point, and I was so confused. The moan grew louder, and I wasn't going to stick around to find out. So I quickly took out my keys, but my adrenaline caused me to fumble. I let out a little yelp. Shit, 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 shit. Whatever was moaning heard me and stopped and now knew I was finally awake, and so it began to climb on the roof of my car. I caught a glimpse of its back legs through my foggy window as it climbed onto my roof, indenting my car roof on its way towards my hood. I turned on my car and I floored it and I got the hell out of there, hearing whatever was on my roof flew off and on its way off let out an angry sort of growl. I was probably going 100 down the road. I rolled down my windows to defog, and that's when I saw a car with its hazard lights pulled over to the side. It was probably like, I want to say 2 miles ahead of where I was initially stopped. I see the driver's side fully ajar, causing the car's interior lights to illuminate the whole inside of the car. It was completely empty. I slowed down a bit, but I wasn't going to fully stop. I wasn't stupid, not after exactly what I had just experienced. That's when I heard the most terrifying sound. A woman screamed, and I know what you're thinking. Oh gosh, that's the most terrifying sound. But this wasn't no normal scream. This wasn't something you hear in horror movies. No, this was real. This was a scream filled with pain. I could feel her pain. The scream was so loud that it caused me to scream, and I accidentally slammed on my brakes, causing my car to screech and stopping in the middle of the road right ahead of the abandoned car. Her screams only lasted for about 7 seconds, as they then started to be muffled by the sounds of bones crackling. I looked at my rearview mirror and I saw a tall figure, probably 7 feet tall, crunched over with long arms and its head tilted to the side, coming out from the woods, and it stopped in the middle of the road. Startled by what I saw, I think I was in shock and I froze for a few seconds. And then it started sprinting towards me, and I think my body took over and I floored it once more. And this time I did not slow down. I didn't even stop for any red lights on the way home. I made it home way faster than ever. This morning I walked outside and I found large indents on the roof of my car. And right on the back of my car, right on the bumper of the trunk, was written in dust as someone traced or their fingers or something in the dirt. Wake up, and wake up. I've been checking the news to see if anyone's gone missing or if anything involving what happened last night has been reported, but nothing yet. Did I dream the whole thing? Was it all a panic? I don't know. How do I explain the indents on my car? What happened? All I know is whatever you do, don't pull over at night. Good night.
If you're laying in bed and you actually want to sleep tonight, then you should skip this. For the rest of us who like scaring the shit out of ourselves, welcome. When I was a kid, my best friend asked a Ouija board how old she was going to be when she died. Okay, spoiler, it told her 22. Probably wondering, did she die at 22? I'm going to tell you a story that only 3 people know. Well, 2, because one of them is dead. This story starts about 20 years ago when Christina and I were about 12. We were inseparable and we used to hang out with her older sister all the time. We were at their house a lot. It looked like a normal suburban house on the outside, but I swear you walked in and it was like a portal to the underworld. This house scared the absolute shit out of me. I would hear screams coming from the attic and I would look down this long, dark, creepy hallway, see dark figures like motioning up when I'm trying to sleep at night. To make matters worse, we would sit in her room with the lights dim, pull out the Ouija board and play all the time. But here's the thing, it only ever worked for Christina. It was like she had some weird connection to it. Naturally, her sister and I always thought this was fake and she was just doing it for attention because it would move so fast all over the place, telling us everything. Never worked when we did it alone, so we were a little bit suspicious. Whatever ghost was on the other side of this had diarrhea of the mouth. This was not like you see on the horror movies where it's like, oh, this is slowly moving to yes or no. Like, no, this was like a T9 texting expert ghost that word vomited constantly. So one day we had just finished watching Big Fish, and in that movie there is this creepy old witch, and you can ask her how old you're going to be when you die. Christina loved this idea. Next thing you know, she's pulling out the Ouija board and immediately asking, how old am I going to be when I die? Planchette slowly starts to move towards the numbers and it hovers over the 2. And then it takes a little bit of a movement back and comes right back to the 2. Christina didn't even skip a beat. She grabs her red notebook that she wrote down all of the answers the Ouija board said in it, wrote down, age I'm going to die, 22. Completely calm. Little did we know, something was set in motion and some weird shit started happening for the next 10 years. About a year after the Ouija board incident, Christina's middle school boyfriend tragically died. He was babysitting his 3-year-old little sister, hanging a rope swing for her in the backyard. The parents got home, found the little girl screaming in the backyard, looking at her brother hanging by the tree. He accidentally got tangled in the rope and hung himself. He had been dead for about 3 hours. While Christina was upset about this, she wasn't hysterical, more so distant. And she said to me, I think I'm gonna see him again soon. I just don't see myself growing old. I can't be that upset about it because something like that might happen to me. For the sake of being able to sleep at night, I wrote off a lot of these things. Christina and I grew apart over the years. A couple of other creepy things happened here and there, but for the most part, I think she had a pretty normal life. She got a job, got a fiance, seemed pretty happy from what I could tell. So now we're about 21 and Christina's wedding is coming up. I didn't go to the wedding, but I saw this footage later. Christina's standing at the altar, all smiles, having just been married, trying to take photos with her family. Softly in the background, you hear a little girl singing the Itsy Bitsy Spider. Christina yells super loudly, Kenna, it's time to take photos. And the camera just slowly pans left. And then you get a great view of this beautiful little flower girl sitting in a pew, holding a Bible upside down, singing the Itsy Bitsy Spider. She shuts the Bible, takes a couple of steps towards the aisle, and slowly walks forward. I shit you not, this 3-year-old looks up at this bride and says, Christina, are you gonna die soon? Freaked out when she heard this, which would be a normal response, but I heard her talk about death so many times as a teenager and just how it didn't faze her that it was a little bit odd to hear her talking about it like this. I really think it's because she was 5 months pregnant. Things had changed for her. About a year after the wedding, Christina was at a cabin with her family in the mountains, having some celebration. Everyone was there, including her newborn son. It seemed like one of those days where nothing could go wrong. Her family always had a 4-wheeler that we would take around the mountains and have a really good time on. At some point in the afternoon, her and a friend decided to take it out for a ride. But that day, something was different. As they rode through the trails, everything seemed all right until Christina screamed. The brakes aren't working. They flew off of a cliff. Both of them were rushed to the hospital. Christina didn't make it. She died on the way there. 22.
Give me the tea. What's the drama?
I'm like 90% sure I dated a serial killer. So I was listening to a true crime podcast, and then they were talking about this serial killer, obviously. And they said, oh, he was from this state. And I was like, okay, that's where my ex is from. And then they said, oh, and then he moved at this time. And I was like, oh, that's when he moved to Ohio. And then they were like, and he's 6'6". I was like, my ex is 6'6". And then they started describing his appearance. And I literally exactly how my ex looks. And I was like, oh, okay, getting a little weird. And then they said his first name. And wouldn't you know it, that's my ex's name. And I was just like, that's, it's a coincidence. It's probably a coincidence, And I started thinking about it. My ex is the one that got me into true crime. Because he was so fascinated with the mind of serial killers. Take with that what you will.
Girlies, please trust your gut instinct, like, no matter what. Even if you end up being wrong, like, at least you are cautious. Because let me tell you the crazy story. So I have this friend, and at the time that this happened, she was in a really vulnerable position. She ended up meeting this other girl, and she told me, like, I've met this girl, she's super nice, we've been hanging out. I was like, that's really nice, I'm happy for you, that's great. She showed me some pictures, and I was like, oh, she seems nice enough. She invited me out to dinner with this woman one time, and the moment I met her, I was like, there are bad vibes. I don't know why, like, I thought this about this person, because they hadn't done anything to me. They were, like, so nice, like, oh, hey, let me take you a jacket. Sit down, have a seat. She paid for my food. She was just really nice. Like, on the way home, it was raining, and she gave my other friend her jacket so that my friend wouldn't get wet, and I was like, that is so sweet. But I knew something was very, very wrong. It was just something. My friend decided to go on vacation to Bali. And while she was on vacation to Bali, it was winter in my country. At the time that my friend was going on vacation to Bali, I was in Japan. I was living in Japan, so I wasn't in England. And my friend said to this woman, you can stay in my house because I know you don't have heating. She gave her the keys, she went off to Bali, she was like, stay here as long as you want. And guys, when she told me this, I was like, something is so wrong. But I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be that person that's like, oh yeah, like stay away from them for no reason. So my friend gets back from Bali like 2 weeks after I moved back from Japan. I pick her up from the airport because I missed her. And she tells me that when she was away, she got a call from the landlord that owns her apartment saying that they had changed the locks and changed the key because some disturbance had happened. And immediately I was like, okay, I gotta say something. I was like, I don't trust the woman that's staying in your apartment. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, I think something's happened. And she was like, yeah, she called me and she told me that she needs to change the locks to get back into the apartment to clean it. And I was like, to clean it? What do you mean? She didn't, right? My friend was like, yeah, I let her change the locks one more time to get back into the apartment. My first thought was like, and I just thought I was being like delusional. I was like, there's no way, like whatever. Anyway, we stayed in London for a little while and then we went back to go check out her apartment. When we got into her apartment, there was like hair, like all rubbed into the carpet, like everywhere, like loads of hair. This woman had ransacked my friend's house, stole all of her expensive stuff, stole all of her nice clothes, She had also stolen like documents, important documents, medical documents, just really random stuff. So I helped my friend clean her house and it took us 3 days to clean everything. On the second day that we're cleaning, the landlady, she stops by the house to talk with my friend that owns the apartment. She said that the disturbance that happened was a really bad odor coming from this house. And she said it was so bad that all of the neighbors could smell it. Everybody in the apartment block, upstairs, downstairs, everyone on her floor could smell it. And it was so bad that they had like multiple reports for it. So the landlady was like, I thought you like in your house. When we opened the door, there was a girl living in there. She told us that you were away on vacation and she was just cleaning your house and you'd left out a packet of meat and it was rotten. And I was like, ain't no way a packet of bacon smells so bad that everyone on her floor can smell it, the upstairs can smell it, and the downstairs can smell it. There's no way. So my friend is cleaning the living room. I'm like, let me clean your bedroom. I go to clean her bedroom. There's hair everywhere. And by the way, the hair that was rubbed into the carpet was black hair. And this girl was blonde, so I know it wasn't hers. She was also an immigrant to the country, so she had absolutely no friends. She had no connections in our country so far. And I'm only telling you that because it's important later in the story. So when I'm in the house, I'm getting this really bad, like, vibe. There's no way that happened here. I'm being delusional. Anyway, I moved the rug in her bedroom, and guess what's underneath it? Nice big patch of blood. But it wasn't like super vibrant. It looked like it had been washed with something. Hell no, like, I was right, something happened here. So, my friend tries to get in contact with the girl. She ends up FaceTiming her, and the girl said, I'm back in my country. She was just like randomly, I went back to my country. I just went back to my country. This makes no sense because she was planning on going to college in my country. Anyway, I think my friend ended up contacting the police for the stolen stuff and also for the on the carpet. But anyway, yeah, girlies, trust your gut instinct. Never know, there might be a...
Do not listen to this story, and I think this is the scariest one I've gotten so far for Spooky Scary Story Time, and honestly, I hate this story. When I read it, the hair on my arms was like standing on end, but I'm gonna share it anyway. Just watch it in the daytime, so save it for later if you need to, but literally don't watch it at night, because I did, and it freaked me out. The story was submitted by this guy named Tom, who told me he wanted to tell me about his experience moving with his girlfriend during 2020. Tom is obviously not his real name. He wanted to be anonymous, but he will be reading the comments. So Tom and this girl, Michelle, are dating for like 3 years. They're living in a big city. I don't know which one he didn't say. They live a really good, comfortable life. Tom works in IT, and his girlfriend, Michelle, is an instructor at a yoga studio, and they both do pretty well. They're both really healthy, really fit. They love being social, going out. No mental health issues at all, right? Tom also said that Michelle made a lot of money on social media. She was sort of an influencer, and she did a lot with different fitness brands, and she would film a lot in her studio. 2020 hits, and Michelle is immediately laid off because the yoga studio closed, but Tom was able to work remotely because he was doing that mostly anyway. Their apartment is really expensive, and their lease is coming up, and they basically decide that they want a quieter life because they don't know how long everything that was going on in 2020 was going to last. So they ended up signing a lease for a place that was about 50 minutes outside the city in more of like a rural area. He said it was still kind of suburban, like there were stores around and places for them to go and get groceries, like not super country, definitely not what they were used to in the city. And when they moved out there, they were really excited because it was a change of scenery for them, and they were saving money to buy a house. So rent was a lot cheaper, and they were both happy with the move. Everything's fine. Tom sets up his office. Michelle has the spare bedroom as her yoga studio where she's going to continue filming content, and things seemed perfect. A couple months after they move, Michelle decides that she wants to get into gardening. She was obviously already really into health and fitness and wellness, but she decided she wanted to be more into sustainability and was starting to like make more videos about sustainability. So she has Tom go in the backyard and basically dig a giant pit where they're going to start a compost pile. And Michelle's out in the yard and she's like planting some vegetables that she had gotten, and Tom calls her over because his shovel hits this like metal box. So she comes over to look, and they pull out this, he described it as maybe like a 12x6 just metal cash box. And it's all dirty and rusty, but they pull it up and Michelle opens it, and inside is a Ouija board. And Tom is immediately kind of like put off by this. Like, he doesn't really believe in that stuff, but he also doesn't like it. And Michelle's like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, I'm gonna make some videos on this. And she takes it out and walks back up onto their patio with it and starts like dusting it off on their patio table. They kind of leave it out there, forget about it. And later that night, Michelle's like, oh, do you want to go play with the Ouija board? And Tom's like, not really. Like, you know, he said that they were really into Tiger King at the time. He just wanted to like watch that and hang out. And she was like more into going outside and playing with the Ouija board. So she's like, well, I'm just gonna go play with it if you don't want to. And he's like, okay, whatever. And he just stayed inside and watched TV. The next day they wake up, Tom logs into his computer to start work, and Michelle, he said, was kind of just groggy, which was pretty out of character for her because she's normally pretty bouncy. She was a morning person. She would always wake up at like 6 a.m. with him, but she's just like slinking around the kitchen. And he's like, are you okay? And she's like, I just don't feel well. She's like, I don't think I'm gonna make any content today. I think I actually have been like having the urge to paint. I'm gonna go to the store and get some painting supplies. And he's like, okay, cool. He's working. She comes home with like a bunch of canvases and some paint. And she basically converts like half of her yoga studio into this painting area. And she spends the rest of the day doing that. The next day, same thing. She just wants to paint. She's not really feeling well, doesn't feel like making content, doesn't feel like doing yoga. This goes on for like a week, and one night he wakes up and she's not in bed. So he gets up to go to the bathroom, and then he notices like she's not in the house. So he sees the patio light is on, and he walks to the back door and he looks out and he sees her sitting at the patio table playing with the Ouija board. And he opens the door and he's like, Michelle, come inside. Like, what are you doing? And she's just like, oh, like I just wanted to see if I would get anything. And he gets this unsettled, anxious feeling in the pit of his stomach. Because now he really does not like the Ouija board. The next day she's painting and he walks in the room and he's like, hey, like, I think we should talk about the Ouija board. I don't think you should have it. Like, I think you should get rid of it. I don't really like the idea of it in our house. And she's like, you're being dramatic. I'm going through something. Like, it's a fun activity for me. I don't have a lot of fun in my life. My job was shut down. And so he just drops it. And he's like, okay, you're right. Like, I'm overreacting. So later he feels kind of bad and he goes back in her studio and she's still sitting there in silence painting. And he said on the canvas, it was just like a bunch of triangles that were all overlapping all over. And he basically tells her that he feels like they haven't really had a good like date night, obviously since 2020 started. He's like, why don't we have a fire in the backyard? We can just like grill some food. Like, it'll just be really fun. And she just tells him flat out no. Like, she just wants to paint. So he goes to bed and she is still painting that day. So he wakes up in the middle of the night again. She is still not in bed and he hears her talking. So he goes, okay, well, she's just making a video. So he peeks into her yoga studio and she's not making a video. She is still painting, but now she is painted off the canvases onto the walls and it's still the same overlapping triangles on every single surface around her. And he's like, Michelle, what are you doing? And she turns around and looks at him and says, I found the door. And at this point, he realizes like she is not right. Like, she's having some kind of mental break. So the next day they wake up, same thing. She wants to paint and he calls her mom and he basically tells her mom that Michelle is going through something and she needs to snap out of it. And he asks her mom if she'll come and stay with them. Her mom has like nothing going on, I guess, because the next day she comes and stays with them. And Michelle seems normal when her mom is there. Like, she basically pulls Tom aside and she's like, I don't know why you called me. Like, obviously I'm happy to spend time with you guys, but she seems normal to me. And Tom's like, she's not normal. Like, I'm telling you, she's not normal. That night, her mom comes and wakes Tom up because Michelle is back outside playing with the Ouija board again. And her mom is super religious, so she does not like the Ouija board idea at all. She's like, you guys need to get rid of it. Like, why did you get her this? And Tom's like, I didn't get her for it. We found it in the yard. The mom's like, oh my God, you found it in the yard? And she's like, we are getting rid of this right now. Like, we are going to burn it. And she makes Tom make her a fire where they burn the Ouija board. And Michelle just maintains like, you guys are overreacting. Like, this is just like a fun activity. Like, it's not even serious. Doesn't have any strong reaction to them burning the Ouija board aside from just like being annoyed. So it's the next night. Her mom is going to leave the next day. And Tom wakes up in the middle of the night to her mom screaming. And he runs out in the hallway and he sees Michelle sitting in the dark, facing the wall, just at the end of the hallway, like facing away from them, sitting cross-legged, staring at the wall. And her mom is yelling, like, what are you doing? Like, get up. And Michelle does not react. Like, it's like she can't hear them. She's just repeating, they're going to come in, they're going to come in, they're going to come in. So Tom runs over, grabs her, picks her up, and like basically shakes her. She snaps out of it and she's like, what's going on? And they're like, you were literally just talking to the wall. So her mom has had enough. She decides that she's going to bring Michelle home with her. She's like, I need to take her to church. Like, I don't like this. And Tom can't really argue with her. He's sad to see Michelle go, but he thinks it's just temporary and he has to work. So he stays at the house when Michelle and her mom leave. I don't know where they lived, but he said it was like within a day's drive and he could go, and he visited her a few times and she seemed fine. Apparently at her parents' house, she kept doing weird stuff at night to the point where they had her committed. Everybody is attributing this to a psychological break from the stresses of COVID and her being laid off. Tom is beside himself, but is trying to be as supportive as he can. He's in constant contact with her mom. And about 2 weeks after she gets checked into this mental facility, Tom is cleared to visit her. So he packs up, drives out to the mental hospital. She's sitting in this cool toned room in a rocking chair when he gets there, and he walks up to her and he's like, hey, how are you doing? And she just looks at him and says, you brought them with you. Oh my God, that freaked me out so bad when I read that. Oh my God. Keep sending me these stories. Tom said Michelle still is in this facility. She has obviously gained a lot of weight. She does not do yoga anymore. She does not make content. He said she has completely lost her mind and barely recognizes him when he goes to see her. A really good one that someone sent me, and I will be adding it to this.
Did any of you have this type of like Barbie head that you can style growing up? If you have one, or maybe your kid has one now, yeah, don't listen to this story. So this happened back in the 80s when this lady was a little girl. She was the only girl in the family. She had 2 older brothers. She mentions how her bedroom was right across from her brother's bedroom, so the doors faced each other. Her brothers did share a room while she had her own bedroom. Also, it's important to mention that the bedrooms didn't have doors. What they would do is put curtains where the door should be. I remember having a curtain on my door once, but that was only because my mom took the door. She took the door to my room. Anyway, she played with this doll head so much that every night when she would go to bed, her mom would pick up that doll head and put it on top of her dresser so that she doesn't play with it all night in bed. So there was one night when the younger brother woke everybody up in that household because he was crying uncontrollably. Obviously, the parents were worried. They ran straight to the bedroom, and when they got there, they asked him what was wrong, why is he crying? And he told them that when he was laying in bed trying to go to sleep, he saw when that Barbie head peeked into his bed. Why did I get chills? The Barbie head peeked into his bedroom from the sister's room. He described it almost as if somebody was holding that Barbie head and just inclined it this way. So I guess like literally, I can't even do the motion. I just scared myself. Anyway, he described it as if like somebody had grabbed that head and inclined it this way, so it looked like it was peeking, which obviously is impossible for that doll to do because it would have fallen. It's only like a head. As he's crying, he's like, she was staring at me almost like she knew I was awake, and she peeked into the room. And it was basically impossible for someone to have hidden behind that Barbie to incline her, because again, she was up against that dresser. Even if it was the little sister, she would have been visible from his bedroom. And to no one's surprise, the parents did not believe him. His older brother that also slept in that bedroom did not believe him either. However, with time, that older brother started to believe because some weird shit happened to him as well. So there was one night where the older brother couldn't fall asleep, and something just told him to look towards his little sister's door. He saw the same thing that his brother claimed to have seen, which is that doll head kind of, you know, inclined looking towards the bedroom. But it wasn't just that. It was not just that. He stared back at her because he wanted to make sure, like, is somebody holding her? Is she really moving? Is it me? And when he is staring at this Barbie's head, he said that the Barbie started making faces at him. He described it as like mocking faces, that like sticking her tongue out at him and doing like silly faces. Bro, that would have scared the I wake up, I turn, I look at my Barbie. The Barbie's like, that's the only thing I could think of. What other faces could she have done? What other faces? That would have scared me. That would have been it. Now that I think of it, that bitch has no arms. You have no arms, bitch. I'm gonna fuck you up. Okay, 34-year-old Letty would have fucked her up, but like 12-year-old Letty would have been dying of a heart attack. He also mentions how her mouth would move in like weird angles, almost as if she was trying to say something to him. And by that point, the little brother had also seen those facial expressions that Barbie was making as well. And of course, the older brother went and told his parents. He wanted to tell them that the little brother was not lying. He also saw that doll moving and making facial expressions, and of course, they didn't believe them. On the contrary, they got in trouble for making these things up. They basically told them, you better not come to us and tell us that Barbie's moving again or you'll be in big trouble. What's the punishment? I get to sleep in the room with you? Okay, bitch, punish me. What's the punishment? You're taking me to sleep in a new home? Take me right now. So the parents didn't believe them until one night where the dad stayed up by himself, and when he was walking down the hallway, he felt as if somebody was behind him. Immediately, he turns around to look, and he could have sworn that he saw something peeking from on top of a dresser. The dad could have sworn that he thought it was that doll head that he saw move. You're a liar, you're making things up, and if you bring this up again, you're gonna be in big trouble, mister. Obviously, it was that moment where it finally scared the dad, where the family decided to get rid of this doll head. So where they lived, the trash people only came on Tuesdays and Saturdays, so they had left the trash and that doll head out there, and it wasn't trash day, so it was just gonna sit out there until the trash came. So while the doll was still outside in the trash, their grandmother came for a visit, and as she was passing by the trash, she saw this like perfectly clean and new doll head on top of the trash can. She pulled it out and asked them why they were gonna throw it away, and her son, the dad, didn't want to tell her why, so he just said it was because the daughter didn't want to play with the doll anymore. So the grandmother decided that she was gonna take it to her home because she had this bedroom that she called the old doll room, and she basically had a whole collection of dolls. She cleaned that doll head up and put it inside of that room. And surprise, surprise, after she put that doll head into that bedroom, weird sounds would start coming from that room. The lady that's telling us the story, obviously that was her doll, and she said that she personally never heard any noise in her grandmother's room where that doll was, but her grandmother and her aunt did hear noises coming from there. She explains that her cousins would also say that they would hear weird sounds coming from that room. They would spend the night at the grandmother's home, and while they were sleeping, they could almost hear like plastic bumping into things in that room. However, they were already scared of that room altogether since there's like old dolls all in there, and they did not dare to go in there and figure out what that noise was. With time, the mom of the girl was like, I cannot not tell them why we got rid of that doll. So she did end up telling the grandmother and the aunt why they got rid of the doll, and obviously they were like, oh my god, so it has to be that doll that's making those noises in that room. However, the grandmother decided not to get rid of that doll. She obviously did believe in the paranormal, but she was not about to be scared of it, so she decided that she was going to keep it in her house so that no one else has to deal with this doll. By the way, the grandmother lived by herself in that house, so yeah, that lady was not scared of the doll. That doll ended up staying with her until her final days, and the grandmother passed away. So grandmother passed away and left that house to her aunt, and her aunt first day took all of the grandmother's collection, including that doll head, and basically got rid of everything. She says that the aunt never told anybody what she did with it. They have not seen that doll head ever since. Yeah, that is a crazy fucking story. I feel like I would die if I were to see that Barbie head just like blah, making crazy ass faces at me. But what do you guys think?
Story time about my old roommate who sold his soul to the devil and told me he did. Forewarning, don't watch this video at night. It's been 10 years since I met this person, and it still freaks me out to think about. But I figure with it being spooky month, October, I'll share this story. People close to me know about it, but I've never like publicly put it on the internet before. That said, this experience definitely made me feel like people can and do sell their souls. And it's one of the reasons I believe in God and light work and positive things and operate from that perspective with everything that I do and talk about. Okay, so I met him, we're gonna call him Dominic for the sake of the story. I met him 10 years ago. I was at a casting call for an MTV reality show in Chicago where I was living at the time. And at this casting call, there were a ton of people. So they separated us into groups of 20 and they brought us around this big table and they were asking us individual questions about our personality, our perspectives, things like that. There was one guy sitting across from me at the table, and I noticed that he was like noticing me every time I talked. He would kind of nod, and then I noticed that every time he talked, I kind of felt myself agreeing with the things that he was saying. So we kind of became like allies around this big group of tables. And at the end of this big group interview, the casting director called this guy, Dominic, me, and then another girl from our group into another room, and he was like, we loved your personalities. We think you guys might be a good fit for the show. We want to keep this interview going. So you're going to just have to wait here, and then we're going to do some one-on-one interviews. So it's the three of us in this room, and the guy leaves. And while we're waiting for our one-on-one interviews, Dominic and I start talking more, and I realize that we actually do have a lot in common, and we have a lot of the same stances on things, namely spirituality. And we ended up having this really deep conversation about like the nature of reality and spirituality and things like that. It was a really crazy conversation to have the first time that you meet somebody. I feel like we really just like connected on like a super deep level. Like it wasn't just like, how are you? Oh yeah, the weather, blah, blah, blah. Like it was a different kind of conversation, but it was a positive one, or so I thought. So this goes on for like an hour, and then finally they call Dominic into the room. He does his one-on-one interview. He leaves. We don't talk again that day. And we hadn't exchanged information or anything like that. So I'm just like, wow, what a crazy conversation. What a crazy first meeting of someone. And we leave. A few weeks go by, and I went to a music video shoot. It was a hip-hop artist. I was there with my friend, and we were getting our makeup done when a guy walked in the room, another actor in the video. And when he walked in, I thought that he looked familiar, and then I realized it was Dominic from this other casting call. And like I got excited to see him. Like it wasn't like a romantic kind of interest that I had in him. Like he was very attractive, but it was more just that connection that I felt like we had as like a friendship or whatever. But I saw him and I was like, oh my God, hey, like we met at this MTV casting interview. And he was also like immediately excited to see me. It seemed like he was like, oh my God, like I can't believe you're here. Like it seemed like fate. So as the music video shoot goes on, like he and I are just like instant besties. Like we're having these crazy conversations, like in between takes, we're out in the parking lot, like talking. And that day we did exchange information. So it was like phone numbers and emails. And he lived pretty far from me. He didn't live in the actual city. He lived like 2 hours away. So he wasn't around much, but we texted and we emailed a lot. We emailed because we were having such deep and long conversations that texting didn't really do it justice. Like we would send each other basically letters. And this texting email relationship kind of went on for like 2 years. We did hang out a couple times when he was in the city. We would get coffee, and there was nothing weird that ever happened in this time frame. I just considered him like a really good friend. Neither of us ended up getting that MTV show, but he did have some successes when it came to other acting pursuits. And I think it's interesting to note at this point that at the time, both of us were pursuing some kind of acting career path, right? I was just more doing it for fun and because I could and because it came easy. But I do think it's interesting to note that we always hear about people in Hollywood that are like selling their souls in order for fame and money and success and all those things. And I just think it's weird that like this is what we were pursuing when I met this person. Okay. So again, no red flags at this point, like just a deep friendship. 2 years after I meet him, I decided I was going to move to Nashville. I moved here with a friend of mine from Chicago. I wasn't really doing music videos or anything anymore. I actually moved here and I started working at a nonprofit doing an AmeriCorps program in environmental sustainability. And Dominic and I kept in touch when I lived here, but we didn't talk nearly as much as we used to. So the first year of me living in Nashville goes by, and my roommate who I moved here with decided that she was going to move out and get her own place. Like, fine, no big deal. So I needed to find a roommate. And I hadn't mentioned it really to anyone yet besides our immediate friend group in Nashville that I was looking. And out of the blue, about a week after she tells me that she's going to move out of our house that we were renting, I get an email from Dominic, and he was just like, hey, how are you? Like, checking in. I hope Nashville's going well. I was just letting you know I've actually been thinking about moving there. I think I'm going to. And I was like immediately excited because again, it seemed like fate. I'm just like, wow, like here's my roommate. So I fire back. I'm like, this is crazy. I think you should move. I have actually a room opening up. If you want to just like move in here, you can come check it out if you want. He's like, I mean, that would be great. Like, when do you need a roommate? I'm like, at the end of the month. And he was like, I can probably move in next month. Like, let's do it. I'm like, this is awesome. So my roommate moves out and I get the room cleaned up and Dominic moves in. And everything was fine for like maybe 3 months. He got a job right away. He was clean. He was a good roommate, like respectful. And again, this was like a completely platonic relationship. So I really enjoyed his company. Like I would come home from work and he would be home, and we would just like have these sometimes really deep conversations, sometimes really light conversations, but again, pretty normal for a roommate situation. And then on month 3 of him living there, things started getting really weird, really dark, and really creepy really fast. There was one night when it was probably around this time of year, like October, and we had both worked that day. He was in the living room watching TV, and I was in the kitchen, like making something to eat, like I think like a stew or a chili or something. But I remember I had like a big stock pot on the stove, and I was like drinking wine, just kind of like in my element. And I felt like somebody, watching me. So I turn around and Dominic is standing in the doorway of the kitchen. And I was just like, oh, hey, this food will be ready like soon, like you can have some. And he just looks me dead in the eye and he goes, I sold my soul to the devil. And I kind of like laughed because that's what an out of pocket thing for somebody to say, right? So I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I sold my soul to the devil. I'm not joking. And like, it really just creeped me out. It rubbed me the wrong way. I like felt myself get chills. I felt my like hands tighten around the pot I was holding. But obviously, like, what would you say in that situation? Like, somebody that you've known for a few years tells you this. Like, so I just thought it was a joke. And I was like, well, what'd you get? Like, eternal youth, love, success, like what? And he does not smile at all. Like, he's still just like staring a hole through me. He was like, no, none of that, something better. But I can't tell you what it is because it negates the terms of the deal. But it was worth it at the time. And I was like, okay, Dominic, like, whatever. And he's like, yeah, I just thought you should know, since we're like living together, the devil never just wants one soul. And he literally does this creepy smile. Like, it's burned into my memory. Like, I wish I could unremember this. He smiles this weird, creepy, toothy smile. And then he just turns around and goes in the living room and like resumes watching TV. So I'm like, so I like stop what I'm doing and I start texting my friend. I'm like, hey, I want to get out of my house. Like, can you meet me? And she's like, yeah, let's just go to like this place down the street. Like, I'll meet you. I'm like, cool. I have this wild thing to tell you. And she had met Dominic. So like, she knew that he was like kind of like eclectic, but like, I was just like, I need somebody else's opinion on this. So I go to meet her. We stay out for a few hours. It was mostly just because I didn't want to be around him. Like, I didn't know what to say after somebody tells you this, And when I came home that night, he was like asleep in his room, like everything was fine. So I just like went to bed, just pretended like it was a joke, ignored it. That's what my friend had convinced me, basically, that he was just playing like a weird joke. So I was like, okay. So I go to sleep. The next day happens, nothing weird. He doesn't acknowledge it. I don't acknowledge it. Like everything's seemingly normal. And then the scratching started. So about a week later, I was laying in my bed. I have a cat. It was dark, okay? The cat is in bed with me. And I hear this like scratching, like on the walls. Like, I don't know if you can hear that, but that's what it sounded like. It sounded like there was an animal in the walls. We were renting an older house, so it wasn't that weird for me to think like a raccoon got in the attic, or like there were maybe mice or something. Like, I don't know. So my cat noticed it too, and he was like staring dead at my closet. So I get up out of bed, I turn on the light, like I go to my closet and I'm listening, and I hear the scratching again. I look in my closet, can't figure it out, but I notice it's coming from like the back corner, like the back wall of the closet, which the other side of that was the living room. So I just like bang on the wall and the scratching stops. And I go back and I lay down, and then it starts again. And so I'm like, what is going on? I wasn't really that freaked out. Again, I thought it was an animal. So I get up out of bed, I turn on the lights again, and I go out into the living room, and it's dark, but I see a figure crouched down against the living room wall, like by the bottom of the wall. And I realize it's Dominic, and he's crouched down and he's scratching the wall outside of my closet. So I'm like annoyed at this point. Like I flip on the lights. I'm like, what are you doing? And he like does this weird creepy smile again. And he's like, I just wanted to prepare you because sometimes he likes to check in. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, this time it was me, but next time it might not be. So just like be prepared. And then he goes, okay, good night. And he walks back into his room and closes the door. I'm gonna have to make part 2. I'm so sorry, but I promise you this story gets even effing creepier. This is part 2 of the story about how my old roommate told me he sold his soul to the devil and then started acting very erratically and strangely. I was going to post the second part last night, but then my baby started crying and I was dealing with him, and then I went to sleep. I didn't expect the video to blow up, so I'm sorry to keep you guys waiting. Also, if you don't like all the details, just hold on the screen and click 2 times speed. I already covered how I met him, how he ended up moving in, and then how he told me he sold his soul and started scratching my walls. I felt like all those details were important. So the next few things that happened, I don't necessarily remember the order in which they happened. I just know that they all happened in the span of a few weeks after he was like, I caught him scratching at my walls. The first really weird thing was that one day I woke up and I went outside, and right outside my porch on the sidewalk, like leading out to the main street, was an entire severed deer leg. There was no gore or anything, but it looked probably fresh because there was still fur like completely covering it. I was trying to rationalize in my head how it ended up there. I thought maybe that an animal had picked it up and like dropped it there, but then, you know, also I was like, well, why didn't it eat it? When I asked Dominic about the deer leg, he just kind of brushed it off and was like, I don't know how that got there. I still don't know if he was involved in that at all. The next thing that happened is he told me that he was going to have a friend come and stay. And again, at this point, he was paying rent, was clean, was working, like, and he had only acted strange a few times. So like, I don't know. I mean, we've all lived with people, I think, that have been weird in some way or another. And I really didn't want to go through the process of like telling him he needed to move and then finding another roommate. I mean, would you? Like, I was broke at the time. I didn't have any extra money. I didn't want to potentially kick him out, not be able to find anybody, and then have to cover that other part of rent. So like, nothing that traumatic had happened yet, right? I just thought this was some weird elaborate joke. So he doesn't tell me the details of his friend that's going to come stay, other than it's a girl. She's from out of state and she's going to stay for a week just visiting. So she shows up one day when he's at work. There's a knock at the door. He told me she was coming that day. He just didn't tell me what time. I answer the door. She's like, is Dominic here? And she's got like 3 giant duffel bags, and she's dressed in like really old clothing. Like I would go as far as to say that maybe she like made them herself. And she spoke very strangely. Like, I can't remember specific examples of things she said, but like it would be something like along the lines of like, if I spilled water, she would say something like, lament not o'er water spilled from the jug. Like, it was almost like Old English, but that was the entire way that she talked. So anyway, I tell her that Dominic's at work and he's not there right now. And she says something along the lines of like, oh, I shall await his arrival in his quarters or something. And I'm like, okay. And so I show her his room, and she goes in there, closes the door, and like does not come out. And he gets home from work. I tell her he's there, or she's there. He goes in his room, closes the door. Don't see them. And when I mean I don't see them, like, she did not come out of his room the entire time that she was staying with us for like a week, and he would only come out to use the bathroom. But I didn't even see her come out to like use the bathroom shower. And we had one bathroom. There was none like attached to his room or anything. So unless she was sneaking out of the window to use the restroom, like, I don't know how she was going until the last day that she was there. So she was staying like one more night, and I came home from work. I think I went out after work because I got home and it was nighttime, and I heard this weird howling from the backyard. So I'm like, what is going on? So I walked around the side of the house to the backyard, and I see they have like a fire going. And before I can even say anything, I see her, and she's basically got her entire arm like in the fire. And he's just like sitting silently in a lawn chair, staring at the fire, like watching her like basically burn herself. Ran over because I thought she was hurt or something was going on, and she just takes her arm out of the fire and just sits there and looks at me. And I look, and like her clothing is like singed, but she doesn't, I mean, her arm looks fine. So I was like, what is going on here? And Dominic is staring at me, and he's like, don't worry, it's just a joke, just go inside, like she's leaving tomorrow. And she just looks at me and she's like, I appreciate your hospitality, or like something weird. So again, I'm like texting my friend, I'm like, I need to get out of here, I need to fill you in on all this stuff that's going on, because at this point, like, I just didn't even want to be around him. Like, so I go out that night with my friend. She basically convinces me that I need to tell him that he needs to move out, because at this point it's too weird. I'm too shaken up. Like, I never want to be there when he's around. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell him that he needs to move. Like, I'm going to find another roommate. So the next day he leaves with the girl. I don't ever see her again. And then he actually started staying out more, which was awesome. It was like an answer to my prayers. Like, he would stay out for like 3, 4, 5, 6 days at a time. He would come home, he would go in his room, he would shut the door, he would go to sleep, and then he would leave in the morning. So that was like the ideal setup for a roommate, right? Like, we all want somebody that's never really there. So I'm like, maybe I don't need to ask him to leave. Like, maybe he just won't be here. And then there's one night I was dating my now husband at the time, and we were sitting out in my like driveway, just chilling, like hanging out. It was a pretty nice night out, although it was like late fall, I'd say. And we're just like talking, and we see this figure coming up the street and like walking toward the house, and it's like wearing a hood and whatever, and it stops in the driveway, and I realize it's Dominic, and he starts walking closer to us, and he looks like dirty. Like, his face is just all dark, and as he gets closer to us, I realize that it's like blood and dirt and like scratches, and I'm like, holy crap, like he got jumped. Like, that's what it looked like. And I like stand up, I'm like, are you okay? Like, what happened? And he just like shrugs, and he's like, it's fine, like, I'm gonna go to bed. So he just goes in the house, and I'm like, what is going on? So my husband at the time convinces me that he's on Schmucks. I can't say it, but he's on Schmucks, because these are all behaviors of someone that's like that's dealing with some kind of addiction, right? Like, staying out all the time, not leaving his room, acting erratically, saying weird things. So I'm like, okay, he's on Schmucks. I'm like, he definitely needs to go. And like, we're kind of talking about it out in the driveway, and then Dominic comes back out, and he's just like asking about our day. Like, he still has all the stuff on his face, like acting normal. And he's like telling us about his day. He's like, oh, I went to work, and then you won't believe it, I found this weird party on my walk home, and I went in, and they had a secret dungeon. Like, he's like telling us all these crazy details, and as he's telling us this, he starts like contorting his body. Like, I can't even do the moves. It was like yoga on steroids. Like, he starts like doing these stretches, but like twisting his arms out of like, it almost looked like they were coming out of the socket. Like, I was so uncomfortable. So I'm like, do you need to go to the hospital? Like, I think you need to go to the hospital. And he's still stretching. At this point, he's like on the ground, and he's just like doing these weird like contorted motions, and he like laughs, and he's like, no, I don't need to go to the hospital, like, I'm fine. So we decide that night, like, I go to my then boyfriend's house, and we decide that the next day I'm gonna ask him to move out. I didn't work that next day, but I stayed out all day because I was just delaying the inevitable. I come home, and I find Dominic sitting on the couch whispering to himself in like just weird non-words. So I'm like, F this. I was like, we need to talk. I was like, your behavior is unacceptable. I would like you to find another place to live. Like, you can have till the end of the month. It was like maybe the 5th or 6th of the month. So he had a couple weeks. I was like, you need to go. And he just stares at me, like, doesn't say anything, just stares. And he gets up and he goes to his room and he closes the door. And I'm like, okay, great. So he wakes up the next morning. He acts like nothing happened. I'm like, hey, we really need to talk about what I said last night. Like, you need to find a place to live. Do you have any options? Do you know anybody that needs a roommate? I can even help you find a place. And he's like, well, I think we can work something out. Like, I think I should just stay. Like, I need to be here to protect you. I'm like, no, I don't need any protection. Like, you need to go. Like, this is not working out. And I lied. And I was like, I actually have somebody that's going to move in at the end of the month. And from that point, he starts like kissing my butt. Like, he is trying to do everything that he can in order to stay. Like, he's like offering to do my laundry, bringing home like extra food. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, you're not going to manipulate me. Like, you need to move. So fast forward up till the end of that month, he's supposedly about to leave. Like, I was very clear all month that he needed to find a place. At that point, he said that he didn't really have a place, but I really didn't care. And I just kept saying like, hey, my new roommate's moving in, in a few days. So hope you're ready to go. I'm in bed, and I heard whispering. Okay, I opened my eyes, and Dominic is standing at the foot of my bed with complete darkness. So I screamed, because obviously you don't expect someone to be standing at the end of your bed in the middle of the night. And after I saw him, he just literally just leaves the room and goes into his room and closes the door. So I call my boyfriend. I'm like, I'm coming over. I'm not going to stay at this house until he's gone. Okay, the night before he's supposed to move out, I'm sitting at the kitchen table. He comes home from work. I was writing something, I don't know what, maybe a grocery list. And he sits down like at my feet on the floor, and he grabs my leg and he starts like kissing up my leg. It was so freaking weird, you guys. He was like massaging my thigh. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, he's like, I don't have anywhere to go. I need to stay here. I'm like, you're not staying here. Like, you're moving out tomorrow. Like, that's the plan. You're moving out. If you're not gone, like, I'm going to have to call somebody to come and get you because you're not going to stay here anymore. It's like enrages him. Like, there was a shelf with like a bunch of like books and glassware on like pushed up against the wall, and he just knocks the shelf over as he's like walking out. And I'm like, he's out later and he's like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't want to move. I don't want to have to find a place. I'm like, you've had all month. I don't know what else to tell. He goes, okay, I do have a place I can go. Like, will you walk me over there? I'm like, sure. Like, I'll walk you over there. It was like a few blocks away from where we lived. So we leave the house. I was just like happy. He literally just packed like a couple bags. He's like, just sell everything else of mine. I'm like, okay, like you can come back and get it if you want. He's like, no, like I don't want it. Just sell it. So we're walking over to this next house, and it's probably like 10 o'clock at night. And it wasn't a busy street, but it was, busy enough. It was a neighborhood. And we're walking, and there's this car like oncoming. Like I see it like, down a little ways in the road, and it starts driving close. And Dominic is in the middle of a conversation with me about how he's moving in with this new person who he told me didn't exist an hour ago. And as the car is coming over, he just walks out in front of the car. This video is ending. I'm posting the next part right now, I promise. Okay, final part about my old roommate who told me he sold his soul to the devil and then started acting crazy. So as I'm walking him to this house that he says he's going to be staying at, he runs in front of a car. And I'm talking about he waited until it was as close as possible, and he just runs out into the street. And the car luckily swerved and didn't hit him, but he just stands there and he's smiling at it. And he turns as the car passes him, and he's just smiling at the car. And the driver obviously is freaked out, gets out of the car, and he's like, what are you doing? And he's just smiling at him. And the guy was like freaked out enough, and he's like, you need to get some medical help. And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm making the right decision to ask him to leave. Like, I don't know what's going on. I'm like, what are you doing? And I fully believe, like, the way that he did it, he intended to get hit and unalive himself. So at the end of this street is where this house is that he says he's going to be living at now. And the house is dark. Like, there's nobody home. He knocks on the door, there's nobody home. And he just sits on the porch with his things. And he's like, I'll just wait here until they get home. And I was like, okay, like, not even going to ask any questions. Like, at this point, I'm going home. So I go home. I go to sleep that night. Everything's fine. He doesn't come back. And I don't ever see him again, but things kept happening. I found another roommate. It was a friend of a friend. This other guy named, we'll just call him Jake. And Jake moves in, and I think all of my problems are over. And then one night I'm in bed, and I see a shadow outside my window. Like, it was definitely human shaped, definitely a person. So I went outside, there's nobody there, and I go back to bed and I see the shadow again. So I'm like, I'm calling the cops. Like, I don't know what else to do. So I call the cops. They said, okay, we're going to send somebody out. 2 cops arrive like an hour, maybe less than an hour later. And they're looking around my house with like flashlights and stuff. They're like, we don't see anybody. And I actually got really mad that day because one of the cops asked me, he's like, are you sure it wasn't a bunny rabbit? And I just like didn't think that was funny. I was like, no, there's like there was a person outside my window. And he's like, okay, well, we'll just keep an eye out and call us if you need anything. So they leave. Don't see anything again that night. Like a week later, my neighbor comes up to me as I'm like leaving for work, and she's like, hey, I don't want to freak you out or anything, but I saw somebody come out of your garage at like 4 a.m. this morning. She's like, my husband was going fishing, like I was helping him load up the truck, and like we just saw somebody like open up the garage a little bit and like roll out from underneath it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We did have a garage on the property. I never used it. It was included in my lease, but it was gross. Like, there were spiders and snakes and stuff, so I just like never ever went in there. And I hadn't been in there in months. So I open up the garage, and there is a mattress, a bunch of like to-go food containers, and anything that was in there that was mine had been like completely trashed. Like, there was like writing on the walls, all these weird symbols. So I called my landlord. I had him come change the locks, and I went to the store and I bought a Pew Pew. And this actually freaked Jake out, my new roommate, enough to where he came up to me and he was like, I don't really feel comfortable living here. Like, there's a lot of bad energy, and I just like, I can feel it. I felt it since I moved in. I just didn't want to say anything because I thought I was just being crazy. But like, he's like, there's bad energy in this room. So I'm like, great. So Jake's getting ready to move out. I'm trying to find another roommate again. And as Jake's trying to figure out a new living situation, I'm at work one night, and he texts me and he's like, the roof caved in. This is the video that he sent me. Okay, so the full roof did not cave in, but you can see the ceiling absolutely did. That was my cat. And this was Dominic's old room. Okay, and this is after he moved out, but like, look at inside of the ceiling. Like, that is fully a handprint. So I texted my landlord. He attributed it to water damage, but like, to this day, I still don't know. Jake ended up moving out. Dominic kept like emailing and texting me. I eventually blocked his number. He still does text me. It's been 6 years since I lived with him, but he still does text me and like email me from random numbers and email addresses every, I don't know, 6 months to a year, I would say. And as soon as I get him, I just block. To this day, I don't know if it was schmugs. I don't know if it was like mental illness. I don't know if he sold his soul. That's just what he told me. And then as soon as he told me that, all this stuff started happening. So, friendly reminder, vet your roommates, and you never really know who you're living with.